Hi there, I'm Dr. LaQuita J, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk about all things in between being and becoming a pharmacist. How you doing? You all right? I want to jump right into it in this video because I want to get into it, honey. If you do not know, I am a Naplex success strategist. I help pharmacists pass the Naplex in 6 months or less by shifting their mindset, strategizing their plan, and still effective for the Naplex exam. And one of the biggest things I have noticed when pharmacists are studying for the exam, um, one of the things is we're always trying to we're absolutely always trying to raise our NAPLES score by reading more, right? You want to read more, you want to take more quizzes, you want to do all the things that you think this is the way to, like, help your brain get it. It's gonna find a stick if I do these things, right? But the problem is when you start reading, you begin to highlight and you start highlighting every single thing because you think everything is important. And this is often raised by the thing is your brain doesn't help doing that doesn't necessarily help your retention because you're just reading, you're highlighting everything's important. It's more passively doing, right? And you may say, okay, but what does this look like? So let me give you an example, right? So let's say you go to the grocery store, right? And you're going to the grocery store for one thing, and I'm going to say some coffee creamer, right? Going for some coffee creamer, and you walk in, you notice you grab eggs, you grab bread, you grab some snacks. All these things are something that you did not go to the grocery store for. You only went for coffee creamer, right? And when you get home, you realize, oh, I forgot the coffee creamer. The very thing that I went to the grocery store for, I forgot to do. And that's exactly how a lot of pharmacists, when you're studying for the NAPLEX exam, that's exactly how it happens. You sit down with the best intentions to study a particular topic, right? You read, you highlight, you feel busy. It's like you're doing something. But on test day, it's like you forgot every single thing that you needed the most. You forgot everything. You don't have the ability to recall the information you studied, how to apply under pressure. You just don't understand it. See, this is what I'm saying. That's because, look, I'm like, am I at your row? I mean, am I at your row? That's one. Am I at your row? Because here's the truth. If you practice, most of the time we want to practice with the sitting down. We want to get the scores of 60 to 7% range, or sometimes 80% range on the quiz banks, right? But to be honest, that's not your ceiling. 70 is not the ceiling. It just means your method is working um, against how your brain learns sometimes. Because retention isn't about how much you spend on something, it's about how you intentionally interact with the material. Another example, right? At one of my jobs, at my job, there we have to our password constantly changes every 3 months. It's a randomized password, and I have to say, okay, how I'm going to remember this information. Granted, I can spend time looking at it and kind of keep studying the password over and over, but I can be intentional how I interact with the password. Like, for instance, the most recent password begins with MW. I said, oh, it's a person whose initials are MW that I work with. It was easy for me to remember, right? But those are one of the things, the techniques you had to see. But then it's like, okay, with this number, oh, okay, well, I graduated in this year, so that's the number 7. Like, you just remember different things, put things together, right? That's how you have to. It's the same concept of, say you remember someone's name, you're remembering a password. It's the same concept when it's time to for the information to you remember the now place information. Even though you're like, but Dr. Liquid is so much information. I know, but it's the same basic principle because most of us, especially in pharmacy school, we were not taught how to study especially at a doctoral level, we were not taught how to study. We were taught what to study. And oftentimes, when clients come to me, especially those who on their second or third attempt, they come to me because that's how they treat the Naplex. They treat the Naplex as a memory dump, but it's an application exam. You just can't read and hope it sticks. You have to be intentional with the information, be interactive with the information. And I want to introduce you a method that I teach my clients. And it's no secret with this method. It's proven, been around for years. And I want you to think of this method as your shopping list for your brain. So when you walk into the exam, it's not like you're going to forget the coffee creamer, okay? So I want to introduce you. And I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you guys because I be coming with my little slides, honey. And I forgot to tell you guys that this is part two. Well, look, where are my manners? This is part two. Oh, I'm picking the wrong thing. Part two of our study of our series called How to Pass the Naplex. This is part two, and I want to dive right into it, okay? Of it. And I want to introduce you this method that I teach my clients called the SQ3R method. And this particular method, it stands for survey for S, Q question, and the three, because it's three R's: read, recite, and review. Now don't worry, because I'm gonna go break this down, and I will try. And I'm actually gonna. I do practice as a HIV clinical pharmacist, so I'm gonna help you with guide you with how can you apply this with HIV, right? And when you use this method, it really transforms your study sessions from that passive reading to active retention. So let's walk through this, how you're going to use the SQ3R method on the Naplex, and especially one of these heavy hitters, HIV, right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to survey. We want to survey before we dive into a chapter, right? We want to make sure. I keep clicking the wrong thing. I'm trying to multitask here. There we go. I'm trying to multitask here. So one of the things we want to do is when we want to survey. We want to skim. Before we dive into chapter, we want to make sure we dive into your notes. You want to skim and see what the chapter or sessions are talking about. So in essence, we were talking about HIV, right? I was trying. That's the word I was looking for. Okay, yeah. So in the essence of we were talking about HIV, we want to scan and go through like the major headings. Like one is going to be the HIV life cycle. That's one. Then we're going to go into the antiretroviral classes. That goes another one. Then we want to go to our preferred initial regimens. Then we want to go into combinations, because there'll be like the combinations of the drugs. Then we also want to go into prep versus pep. Those are some kind of settings we want to do. So we want to check out those subheadings. Like when we come to the HIV life cycle, how many stages is that life cycle? Like those are questions we want to look at, like, oh, okay. We want to survey what's about to happen. Survey what we're about to read so we can know. Like, check out those subheadings, because when it comes to the HIV classes, you're going to have the NRTIs, the NNRTIs, the INSTIs, protease inhibitors. You want to glance at those tables, guidelines, like glance at the summary so we can get an idea, because what you're doing is you are painting your mental map. And it's like scamming the grocery store aisles before you shop, right? Look at it from that. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, if we're looking at the HIV, we want to make sure that we question. The second is the Q is the question. We want to question. Now you're going to turn like each heading into a question, or your subheadings into a question, so your brain can automatically start hunting. Now, one of the killer things I would say that I tell my client, I'll say, well, first off, I start that. Why we do this, because your brain loves to solve problems. It's is wired to find answers. So we want to make sure we do this. And this is a killer method because I often tell my clients, like some of the things, especially someone who has taken a Naplex before, or even, I'm not gonna say just if it is your first attempt taking Naplex exam, you want to look into saying, okay, what kind of questions? Think about things you already know, especially if it's your second attempt. I think most of you've seen it before. Like, think about things you already know that you struggle with, and start writing questions down. Just write the question down for things you already know you struggle with. Like, okay, what exactly does the mechanism of a integrase inhibitor does? Which HIV regimens are first line treatment for naive patients? What is a combination for a AAA? What is the side effect of efavirenz? What is the generic name? Well, not generic. What is the brand name for efavirenz, right? Which drug causes hyperbilirubinemia? I'm butchering that, but y'all got it, okay? We want to get in the habit of asking yourself these type of questions, because now your brain is on a mission. It's on a mission to solve these questions, not on autopilot where we constantly reading something. Then now we knowing this is the time that we want to read. We actually want to go into reading. So this is the time we say, okay, I can read this information now. Now with reading, you're going to do exactly what it does. This is where you go to your question. This is where you're actually reading the section, but as you're reading with purpose. You're looking for the answers to the questions you just proposed to yourself. For example, we said that, okay, what is the mechanism, like the mechanism for integrase inhibitors? Like, what's the mechanism actually? How exactly do they work? A question could be, now once we start studying integrase inhibitors, we can identify the drugs, dolutegravir, bictegravir, ratigrapir. We can list those drugs. Now we can see, oh, the mechanisms of action. Oh, they block the HIV DNA from integrating in the host genome. That's it. What particular stage is that? Because again, we said the HIV has a life cycle. At what stage does the integrase inhibitor works? And that's just a keynote. Some like one or two key. I think like I'm shaking, but it's okay. Um, one or two keynotes is that, like dolutegravir, it's pregnancy. You want to caution it in patients with our first trimester, but that is something like you want, like, remember, like, keynotes about that. Bictegravir is often in a lot of combo tablets. That's a keynote, like a look like gem you can write down. And you want to make sure you're highlighting only what's essential, because a lot of times we just highlight just to highlight. But remember, if everything is highlighted, nothing, you're not gonna remember too much of it. Just because it's highlighted doesn't mean it's like essential, because really when you highlight, you want to only highlight what is really essential to the information. But these are some things you want to start doing. So again, going back, S is survey. Q, you want to write your questions. Survey the landscape before you even read, like shopping the aisles. Then you want to question, like, because even to the point where you skim the aisle, you say, oh, I like something. You want to question, but do I really need this? It's the same way, like, question, like, what do I don't understand? And then you want to start reading, and you want to actively look for things. So if we were talking about the grocery store, the reading, we ain't gonna read no labels, but the reading would be, oh, let me go read my shopping list, okay? Which was to get coffee cream. All right. The next thing we want to do is we want to recite. You want to now we have to start identifying, as we read, we're answering questions, right? So we want to start the process of looking away from the page and answer the questions out loud. Like, for instance, what is the mechanism of action? But the key thing is when you ask these questions to put them in your own words. So for the question of what is the mechanism of action of integrase inhibitor, it prevents HIV DNA from integrating in the host cell's DNA by blocking the integrase enzyme, hence the name integrase inhibitor, right? Then we also, one of the questions was asked was, which HIV regimen are considered first line for treatment naive patients? That would be integrase inhibitors plus 2 NRTIs. So that could be like bictegravir with tenofovir, tenofovir, alendronate, that one, intracitabine, or it could be dolutegravir or abacavir and amlodipine. Those are some things. And even if you can't answer, you can go back and check, and then try again. But constantly saying it out loud forces your brain to organize and recall the information. And a lot of times too, and the key thing when we're reciting things is to put it in our own words, because we just don't want to regurgitate something that we just wrote down. We want to like, but how can, like I always ask my client, but how are you gonna remember this though? Like, how are you gonna remember this? That's a game plan. Like, how are you gonna remember this information? Because it's the same way of, like I said, the password. You have to make it relate back to you. Follow me? And yeah, and if you liking this and you like the way it's like this, look, drop a comment below. Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. I want to know. And we're gonna get into this third R. And the third R, I almost thought I was like bro man saying from the fifth floor. I was like, hold up, let's make sure we got these numbers right, okay? But the third R is gonna be review. We want to make sure that we review especially within 24 hours. We want to review the same questions again. And this is a big point of I always tell my clients, where when we review, you have to review, because if you don't review, it's never going to your long-term memory. It's only going to stay in short-term memory. So you have to constantly review. And within those 20 hours, you want to make sure you review your notes, the questions, and you want to repeat the reciting. Constantly repeat the citing. And at the end of the week, you just want to run through those HIV questions, because repetition moves all the information for you. It's going to move everything from that short-term to long-term recall. And that's exactly what happens on the exam, because the Naplex is a very random test. I don't care what Facebook group you're in, what thread you're reading, or anything. Anything is upgrades for the exam. I don't care. People like, oh, I see the exam such on my exam, but it ain't gonna be on your exam. It changes, okay? It really do changes. So I want to make that very clear, okay? Let's make that very, very clear. I do. But I also want to make sure I tell you, like, I'm teaching you this method, but I really want to hone in on why it works. Because oftentimes, again, this method works. And let me make sure, just in case you like, oh, what was the method again? SQ3R. Survey, question, read, recite, review. Okay. And with this method, it's so important because you want to make sure, you have to understand that the Naplex is not a open book exam. It's a open book brain exam. It's like an open book brain exam. And the reason why this SQ3R method works, because it activates multiple learning channels. You got visual, if you're a visual learner, auditory learner, kinesthetic learner, it activates all of that. Visually, you get to answer the questions. Auditory, you reciting. Kinesthetic, you actually going to teach, because you're teaching yourself the answer. It's literally solving a problem. You started with a question, now you're answering the question. It also prevents you from doing that passive reading. Sitting here, you started reading something like, oh, I just read some, I don't even know what I just read, because you wasting time. You passive reading. You're not even trying. Your mind's not even ready to receive the information, because it doesn't know what it's looking for. And that passive reading is an absolutely recall killer. And it also helps too, because when you get these questions, it builds in that space repetition automatically that you need, and it gives you structure, so you know what intentionally, when you're about to, intentionally what's about to happen. Every single time you study, okay, let me answer these questions. Even if you go back in the program Naplex Play, I teach my clients. I don't teach my clients. I teach them, and they also use my proven method called the SCORE method, which it has space repetition, and it also gives you this structured way of reviewing. So that is very important. And when you study this way, you'll notice that when you start studying this way and you start doing quizzes, you'll notice that your test, your quiz scores will improve. And not saying that 70 is that ceiling now. We're not saying that. We're not saying like 70 is not the ceiling. It really becomes your floor, because just like you're starting up, it is just where you're starting from. It's not necessarily the ceiling, it's going to be your floor. And the SQ3R method isn't about working harder, it's about studying in a way that your brain loves to remember things, because in the day our brain loves to study, our brain loves to solve problems. A lot of times that's what we're doing, and we're solving a lot of problems a lot of time. And if you're ready to really start applying these high yield concepts, I advise you to go back and watch episode 1 to get your mindset ready, because when you combine the confidence with the right, you get the confidence with the mindset with the right method, that's when your results start to change. As I said, I help pharmacists passing their place in 6 months or less, shifting their mindset, strategizing their study plan. We're shifting our mindset in episode 1. We're adjusting, we're strategizing our study plan here with this SQ3R method. And we're going to start studying effective for the Naplex exam. Because and if you want to, and if you want me to walk, well, I'll say I just walked through this. I also mentioned the play framework that's in episode 1. But if you want to learn more about us and how and PharmD To RPh and how I can help you, go to LaQuitaJohnson.com. Feel free to book a strategy call. I will link that below here. And let's talk. Let's see. Let's give you a strategy. Because a lot of times I offer things that are not on my website because I just feel like I want to dilute all the things I do. Okay. But just remember that you got this, and let's make 70 or the 80 your new floor. It's not the ceiling, okay? But until next time, remember that pharmacy is only if you are. Now go be great, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace. I know, I'll be like,